Hello recruit, and welcome to Astroneer Academy 103, Natural and Refined Resources. Today, we will be investigating the natural resources that you can extract from the terrain and refined resources you can create from them. We will also look at some base building modules used to produce these resources. But before we dive into all of that, we need to take a look at your terrain tool and how you can use it to not only extract resources, but to also shape the world around you. At the outset, this course won't be as action-packed as our course from 2 weeks ago. It's difficult for a discussion of using the terrain tool and obtaining resources to compete with a steady string of an Astroneer meeting an untimely demise. So today's course will be a bit more academic, but it is still packed with a lot of useful information. On its own, your terrain tool is fairly simple. If you need a quick refresher on its basic operation, head to the Astropedia and check out the 4th page of the Astroneer Basics section. In Astroneer Academy 101, you extracted 4 resin and 4 compound, and you filled a small canister with soil. As mentioned in that course, the soil contained in that canister can be quite useful. Having a canister that contains some soil enables you to manipulate the terrain beyond just digging holes. As seen in the Astropedia, you will be able to add and flatten terrain. Both of these are fairly straightforward. You equip your terrain tool, select the mode you wish to engage, and begin manipulating soil. Adding terrain has a couple of different options, however. If you once again return to the main menu of the simulation and choose the Options menu, you will notice an option near the top labeled Terrain Tool Add Mode. You get 2 options here, Classic and New. If you choose the Classic option, terrain will be added in the direction indicated by the arrow on the Terrain Tool reticle. The New option changes this, and instead, the terrain you add will follow the motion of your Terrain Tool reticle. When it comes to using your terrain tool to flatten, the flat surface you create will follow the angle of the terrain tool reticle. If you have the reticle aligned with a fairly flat surface, you can flatten a large area of terrain fairly easy. This can be useful for expanding the flat surface in an area you wish to construct a base, or even to bridge gaps in canyons and other areas. If you align the terrain reticle on an angled surface, however, you will flatten the surrounding terrain at an angle. This latter ability, flattening on an angle, is one that is often overlooked by many Astroneers seeking to build ramps to explore the depths of a cave or safely climb to higher ground. Using the flatten functionality of your terrain tool to create ramps can make a huge difference, taking your ramps from lumpy, bumpy, difficult to traverse messes to smooth, flat surfaces on a consistent angle. Of course, if you build your ramps too steep, you might not be able to walk up them and you may find that you slide uncontrollably. But if you build your ramp at just the right angle, you can use them to slide, allowing you to move at a quicker speed. To initiate a slide, simply do a small jump while sprinting down the ramp. When you land, you should begin to slide. Don't worry if you don't get the hang of it right away. A bit of practice is all it takes to get it down. To slow down while in a slide, simply pull back a bit on the left stick of your controller or tap S on your keyboard. Whether you want to use the add or flatten functionality, it is not a bad idea to get a little practice with both. It can take just a bit of trial and error to get the hang of manipulating terrain, but you should be able to master the basics rather quickly. And if you already see potential to manipulate the terrain to create impressive bases, sculptures, and more, well, stay tuned for Astroneer Academy 306. Next week, in our first Astroneer Academy Extra, we will explore terrain tool augments that introduce additional functionality to your terrain tool. But for now, let's move on to talking about resources. Let's once again turn to the Astropedia and head to the first tab of the Resources section. Here we find a nice list of every natural resource, where they can be located for extraction, and what a single nugget of each looks like. What the Astropedia does not show you, however, is how to identify each of these natural resources before you have extracted them with your terrain tool. So as I talk about other information related to these resources, I'm showing you all 15 of them as they appear before you extract them. You probably noticed that 9 of these natural resources can be extracted from the terrain of any planet, though one is only found deep down in the mantle biome. The remaining 6 natural resources can each be found on 2 planets each, and the Astropedia helpfully tells you not only on which planet you will find them, but also in which biome they are located. One of these natural resources is rather unique. At first glance, Astronium may not seem all that useful. It's not used to print many objects, and it can't be smelted into a refined resource or combined with other resources to create more advanced resources. Upon closer inspection, however, Astronium's value comes into view. While all of these uses will be covered more in depth in upcoming courses, it's worth taking a moment to highlight them here. Astronium can be traded for several useful items and resources via the trade platform. During limited time events, it can be used to create special objects or shipped off via an extra request platform for event points. It can even be combined with scrap on the small printer to create a new item that can be traded for composite resources and rare items. There are some exo research aids containing QTRTGs that can only be opened with Astronium. And many Astroneers have set up automated Astronium research to assist them with gathering bytes to unlock schematics in the research catalog. Moving on, the next page of the resources section of the Astropedia details all of the refined resources. Each of these 9 refined resources are created by processing the corresponding natural resource in a smelter. As you make progress through the simulation, you will quickly become familiar with which natural resource is required for which refined resource. Until you have that committed to memory, you can always come back to this tab in the Astropedia for quick reference. But here's a pro tip from Raisins that can aid your memory. The tooltip of any resource will help you with identifying what it is refined into or from. For example, the tooltip for aluminum says refined laterite. This tooltip comes in handy, preventing the need to constantly reopen the Astropedia to determine which natural resource is needed to create a refined resource. That brings us to the Smelting Furnace, also known as the Smelter. You will need to unlock it in the 3rd tab of the research catalog for 250 bytes. You'll find it on the top row. With it unlocked, you can now print the smelter on the medium printer using 1 of the compound and 2 of the resin that you collected in Astroneer Academy 101. Once it's printed, it'll be packaged in a medium or tier 2 package. When unpacked, it becomes a large or tier 3 object. Since the smelter requires power to operate, you will need to attach it to a platform with at least 1 large attachment slot and connect that platform to power via 1 of the cable plugs. Thankfully, the printing up mission that you completed in Astroneer Academy 101 rewarded you with a large platform B, and that's perfect for holding the smelter. There is an additional type of smelter available in the training simulation, but it is not one that you can create. It can be located on or in debris scattered about the planets, rewarded through a limited time event, and even obtained through the trade platform. But those later topics will be covered in future courses. Should you encounter the portable smelting furnace during your travels, it will function much the same way as the regular smelting furnace. Its key differences are its size and its power requirements. Since it is a small or tier 1 object, it can be used without attaching it to a platform. You simply need to connect 1 of its cable plugs to a power source. Its size means you can also attach it to your backpack and carry it with you to smelt resources while on the go. It can also be used in more advanced automation setups, but we'll explore the topic of automation in much later courses. Both of your smelters can refine a large number of natural resources if set up properly. To do this, you must attach the smelter to a platform with ample storage for both the natural resources and the refined resources that will be produced. When turned on, a smelter will automatically pull the natural resources and begin refining them. If there is available storage when the refined resource is complete, the smelter will eject the refined resource and automatically pull another natural resource to begin refining it. If there is no available storage, however, the smelter will pause production until its output slot is cleared. You can do this by manually removing the refined resource or providing available storage. With the smelting furnace printed, you may have noticed that you completed the first objective in the Smelteringly Hot mission. The next step is to refine aluminum from laterite. But we are going to gather 2 additional resources, Sphalerite and clay, so we can complete the retooling mission as well, gaining 2 new terrain tool augments and being rewarded with the final base building module that we will discuss today. To begin, we need to head down into the caves to locate both laterite and sphalerite. If there is not a natural cave opening near your base, you can use the ramp building information you learned earlier today to build yourself a ramp down into the first cave biome. Do not become discouraged if you do not locate both Laterite and Sphalerite right away. While both are fairly abundant, they are distributed evenly and randomly around the cave biomes of Silva. Your starting shelter may or may not have been close to nodes for either resource. Keep dropping tethers and exploring the caves until you have found both. Sure, you could use oxygen filters while locating these resources, but they won't help you find your way back out of the caves like tethers will. Once you have located and gathered Sphalerite and Laterite, head back to the surface and begin scouting around the plains biome for clay. Keep an eye out for wreckage and debris, as these will often contain clay or even the ceramic that you will be using in just a moment. Once you have all three resources, head back to your starting shelter. You can unpack the medium storage you received as a reward from the resourcing mission and attach it to the large platform B that is currently holding your smelter. This will give you a place to unload the resources you've collected and will also serve as storage from which the smelter can pull natural resources and place refined resources. Now turn on the smelter and wait as it refines the resources you have collected. You may have noticed that the power cables and plugs begin to glow red, but don't worry, that just means you do not currently have enough power to run the smelter at full speed. We will be covering power in our next course, so you won't be stuck with a slow smelter for very long. Once the laterite is smelted into aluminum, you will receive a notification that the Smelteringly Hot mission is complete, so head back to the mission log on the landing pad and claim your reward of another medium storage. And now we move on to our final item today. The Soil Centrifuge. The Soil Centrifuge can be unlocked in the research catalog for 750 bytes and crafted on the medium printer from 2 compound and 1 aluminum. Alternatively, you can utilize the zinc and ceramic that you just refined. You will need 2000 bytes to unlock the Boost Mod and Drill Mod 1 in the research catalog. Creating those 2 augments will complete the Re-Tooling mission, which will unlock the schematic for the Soil Centrifuge in the research catalog and reward you with the Soil Centrifuge. We will discuss these 2 terrain tool augments more in depth in next week's Astroneer Academy course. But for now, how you proceed is your choice, though you may not have the 2000 bytes required to unlock the augments for retooling. Personally, I prefer to take a few minutes to explore the area surrounding my base, scanning research samples until I have the 2000 bytes. This not only allows you to complete another mission, but it saves 750 bytes in the long run and means you don't have to return to the caves right away to extract more laterite. I'm going to assume you're following this path as well, and that while I was spending even more time to justify my course of action, you've collected the 2000 bytes, crafted the 2 required augments, and you now have a free soil centrifuge. Good job. For now, you can pick up the smelter and set it aside, then unpack your new soil centrifuge and place it where the smelter was. If you interact with it, you will see that the control panel displays 7 different natural resources that you can scroll through, along with a few buttons. But you will also notice that the big button in the bottom right is inactive. That is because the soil centrifuge requires soil from a soil canister. So refill your soil canister with some soil and then attach it to the soil centrifuge. Now, as you scroll through each resource, you will see a meter to the right that indicates how much of each resource you can create from the soil you have provided. If you refill your canister and reattach it to the soil centrifuge, you should now be able to create the full quantity of each resource listed on the soil centrifuge resource panel. The soil centrifuge is an incredibly handy base building module, giving you the ability to create some of the more commonly used natural resources from just a few canisters full of soil. This can really come in handy early on when you may have exhausted all the nearby deposits of resin or compound, but find yourself needing them to progress through missions or your own personal objectives. Nearly the entirety of the planet that you're standing upon is comprised of soil, giving you the potential to create a nearly unlimited supply of these 7 natural resources. Oh, and you might be wondering what the small round blue button on the control panel for, and you might have noticed that same button on the printers. This is a repeater button and will be covered more in later automation courses. If you select it, the soil centrifuge will continue to produce the selected resource as long as it has available soil and storage on which to place the resources it produces. But this definitely gets into a bit of an advanced area, so while you're free to experiment with it for now, rest assured, we will be learning all about automation in a handful of weeks from now. And that brings us to the end of today's course. Today, you have learned about additional functions of your terrain tool. You have also learned about the 15 natural resources and how you can not only locate them, but also how you can create 7 of them with a soil centrifuge. You have been introduced to refined resources and how to produce them from natural resources using 2 different smelting furnaces. We got through all that without once mentioning pudding, except I just mentioned it, so never mind. In our next course 2 weeks from now, we will explore the concept of power within the training simulation, discussing both power production and power consumption. Before that, there will be an Astroneer Academy Extra discussing terrain tool augments, and an Astroneer Academy Quick Bite teaching you how to gather resources quickly with your terrain tool. Until then, I'm Brandon, reminding you to keep looking to the stars.